trying to put together things that we have been saying for a while. We've talked about 10 commitments and 3 habits and 4 goals. And the way those come together then is because you matter to God, ponder 10 commitments. You matter to God, and then as you contemplate or ponder His commitments to you, you'll begin to understand that you matter to Him. And this will be the foundation for what will become a transformed Christian life. But don't just ponder 10 commitments, practice 3 habits. Because what will happen as we go through life, things happen that don't feel good. And the impact of those things on our mindset is that we don't matter to God. Because if I mattered to God, then He would give me what I want and He would take away what I don't want. So at some point, pondering 10 commitments will feel... That's why practicing 3 habits will help. Quiet your heart and share your heart and give your heart. We're going to talk today about pursuing 4 goals, which ties it together. If you were to desire to make progress in your spiritual life, let's say if you were to kind of wake up and say, you know what, I really want to be a more authentic follower of Christ, what would that mean? What might you pursue in order to arrive at that destination? What things would you do differently? What things would you do that you don't do now? What things wouldn't you do that you do presently? When we think about spiritual maturity or a spiritual person, certainly we think of Jesus Christ. And, as you look at Him, what are the things that characterize Him? Certainly He was disciplined. When we think of what He was willing to do, because He was willing to do what the Father told Him to do. There were individuals that sought to pattern themselves after discipline. There were the Pharisees, frankly. There were ways that they disciplined themselves in the area of Bible knowledge and prayer and giving and fasting and evangelism. Those are spiritual disciplines. They're the kind of things that you focus on in order to make progress in your spiritual life. And those would be some of the things that we would shoot at. Increasing our Bible knowledge. Praying more often. Giving more sacrificially. Praying. Evangelizing. Telling others about Christ and fasting. But again, the people that Jesus had issues with did these things fairly regularly. Bible knowledge, they memorized the first 5 books of the Bible. Prayer, they prayed 6 times a day. And they might have been pattern prayers, but they never failed to do them. And no matter where they were, if they were going from here to there and it became time for prayer, they would stop where they are. Somewhat like the Islamic world does, where everybody at a certain point, they kneel no matter where it is. So that's what the Pharisees were like. Fasting. The Bible indicated in the Old Testament that there's 1 day per year that you were told to fast, and the religious authorities, they fasted 100 times a year. Not just 1, 100. Twice every week. Giving, they gave 1/10 of all they had. Not just money, but I guess what I read, it down to seeds in their garden. So if they planted a garden, for instance, corn is coming up. And if they took in a corn harvest, they would take 1 out of every 10 ears of corn and set that aside and give it to God. Not just corn, but seeds. Little mustard seeds, so they'd separate them out. Evangelism. Jesus indicated that they traveled over land and sea to win a single convert. And what He ended up saying to them is that you are like whitewashed tombs. You look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. What I'm saying then is, you could pursue discipline. And again, these are not bad areas, but it's possible to pursue Bible knowledge, prayer, fasting, giving, and evangelism, and not arrive at spiritual maturity. In fact, what Jesus said, that's not spiritual life. He described them as whitewashed tombs. And He was describing them as individuals that are really dead, but they only look like they're alive. You might think of it if you walk through a cemetery, and there's individuals posed in different positions. There's an individual, a skeleton, sitting in a chair with a Bible open. Another one kneeling on the ground praying. And when Jesus looked at these religious leaders who did all these things, this is how he looked at them. This isn't spiritual life, it's spiritual death. Maybe we can look at power. A measure of spirituality is power. Certainly with Jesus, he was able to go around and do things nobody else could do. And he was spiritually powerful. He healed people and he predicted the future. If we wanted to pursue being more authentic followers of Christ, we could go in this direction and see if we could bring ourselves into a position where we could see about the future, or maybe we would have different spiritual experiences. Interesting that Jesus at one time said this, "Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'" Individuals here who are predicting the future. They're prophesying in Jesus' name, saying, here's what's going to happen, and apparently it happened. Or they're doing miracles, they're touching people, and what Jesus says, many are going to say to me, "Hey, wait, look at what those things we did. Remember that thing that I predicted the future and it happened, and I did that healing thing and it worked?" And Jesus said, "I never knew you." So you could pursue being spiritually powerful and not arrive at the destination either. Which brings us, what could we pursue? What are those things that we could shoot for? That if we hit what we're shooting for, will land us in a place where we can be more authentic followers of Christ. I'm going to suggest, it's on the outline, 4 things that we become authentic and confident, transformed, and strong. I'm going to suggest pursue 4 goals. Pursue authenticity. Pursue confidence. Pursue transformation. And pursue strength. An acronym, ACTS. A-C-T-S. A, authenticity. C, confidence. T, transformation. S, strength. What might you shoot for in order to be a more authentic follower of Christ? A, C, T, S. You say, "Mike, I want to get from here to there. I want to make progress in my Christian life." I'm giving you 4 things to shoot at. Acts. Authenticity, confidence, transformation, strength. We talked about pondering 10 commitments and practicing 3 habits. Frankly, if you are focused on becoming spiritually disciplined, you really don't need to ponder 10 commitments. Because somebody who focuses on being disciplined is preoccupied with their commitments to God rather than God's commitments to them. So, if you're going to be spiritually disciplined, if that's your focus, even though I've indicated that won't always bring you to where you want to go, but discipline is important though. But if that is the consuming focus, you don't need to ponder 10 commitments. And in fact, you don't need to practice 3 habits. You don't need to quiet your heart. And you don't need to share your heart with God. What you need to do is just get busy. Be more disciplined. Knuckle under. Get it done. If you are pursuing spiritual power, you don't need to ponder 10 commitments. You just need to think of how you can have the Spirit flow into and through you, whatever that means. You don't need really to practice 3 habits. To be powerful, you don't need to have a quiet heart. In fact, oftentimes I see those who are in ministries that reflect spiritual power, and they're not quiet, they're usually loud. So you don't need to quiet your heart to do that. I'm going to suggest, though, that if you're pursuing authenticity and confidence and transformation and strength, if you're going to pursue 4 goals, you're going to need to ponder 10 commitments and practice 3 habits. And that's how all this stuff ties together. There's no way to be authentic, confident, transformed, and strong without pondering 10 commitments and practicing 3 habits. Let's look at why. Jesus, when you look at him, Jesus was authentic, and he He never said things that weren't true. In the night before he was to, not the night before, it was the week before, in John chapter 12, he says, now my heart is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, deliver me from this hour? No. It's for this very reason I came to this hour. Glorify your name. You know what he said? My heart is troubled. The image of that word is if you opened up a washing machine in mid-cycle. You know, you pour the soap and the agitator's spinning, and if you open the lid of the washing machine, and it's the kind of washing machine that it doesn't stop, it keeps going. What are you going to see? You're going to see that agitator spinning and spinning all those clothes up and around and the suds and things like that. Let's call those clothes. You see that thing with the washing machine, your washing machine that's open? The clothes. Let's call those clothes emotions. And they're spinning around and they're churning those clothes. What Jesus said, he opened up his heart. He said, this is how I feel. My heart is troubled, literally agitated. His heart was churning emotions. I'd call that authenticity. He didn't claim to not have emotions. He said, I feel them. He was authentic. And frankly, when you look at the Pharisees, and again, spiritual disciplines are important. However, here's what Jesus said, and perhaps this is the thing that caused spiritual disciplines to have no impact. And in fact, to cause them to be like those posed skeletons in a cemetery. Here's what he said. Well, it's in your worship folder. Look at this passage. It says, be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. So if you want to put your finger on, what is it? What is it that caused somebody who knew the first 5 books of the Bible, that gave, evangelized, fasted, and prayed, what caused those things not to be able to have impact? And what it was, hypocrisy. A lack of authenticity. And I guess we could say this. This is spiritual cancer. These are theater masks. And O'Gorman's going to do a presentation, a drama. His play mid-October, so we're going to be in this set until mid-October. But you know what happens? This is a place where people play roles. And what Jesus indicated, that's what he envisioned the Pharisees as. What they did, they played to the crowd. And what they did was so people could see. And they performed these things, and they were looking up at God with one eye, but they were looking at the crowd with the other. And what they wanted was to live in the light of, look at what I'm doing. Isn't that wonderful? And what Jesus said, hypocrisy is spiritual cancer. It can take things that can be associated with health and cause them to be sources of sickness. This is a significant thing. Again, every once in a while you come to a verse in the Bible that takes a really confusing thing and says something so profound and so simple and straightforward that when you think of it, it rocks you on your heels. What the yeast of the Pharisees? One word. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Having one thing happening inside, but presenting a different face. Playing to the crowd, not being authentic and honest with God. You know what they did as a function of hypocrisy? They never said the real thing. They always said the right thing. Never said the real thing. For instance, God said, honor your father and mother. He's speaking to the Pharisees. He reminds them of the commandment. God said, honor your father and mother. And anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. But you say, Jesus speaks to them, that if a man says to his father or mother, whatever help you might have otherwise received from me is a gift devoted to God, he is not to honor his father with it. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites! Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Let me tell you what's going on. I'm a son, and I have a father and mother. I want to hold on to my possessions. In Israel, it as is a value, I think, everywhere, that where there is civilization, children do what they can to take care of parents. And that certainly was the culture of Israel. The Pharisees really liked to hang on to what they wanted to hang on to. So, there was a standing thing that said, honor your father and mother. That means help them out. It means if they get in a place where they need something, give it to them. Do they need a place to stay? Provide the place to stay. Do they need rides in as much as is possible? Here's what the Pharisees did. They said, oh, you know what? I'd like to help you, but this stuff right here, it's devoted to God. The word is korban. Korban, it's under the ban. So, Mom, Dad, I really understand the deal, but you understand where I am. I have to serve God. This money is devoted to God. Therefore, I just can't let you have it. And Jesus said, okay, that might sound like a good thing, but it's not a good thing. That's hypocrisy. What that really is about is, listen, I just don't want to part with my stuff. Now, that would be a more open, honest response, but that's not what they said. They said the right thing. And that's what hypocrisy is. It's a way, sometimes within religious circles, individuals stand up front and you would get the impression that they don't struggle with anything. They always say the right thing, but not the real thing. That's what the Pharisees were like. Problem with that is that God doesn't judge what we do. He judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. What we think about God, and then what we do because of how we think about God, that's what God judges. Authenticity goes hand in hand with confidence. Think about someone with whom you can share your heart openly. Step back. Who can you talk to openly? Think about that person. Might be family, might be friend. It's the person that you can go to and you can just launch into the conversation. You don't have to be careful about your words. You don't have to hide things. You can speak openly and freely. And by the way, that is what the retreat is for. Sometimes we treat God like a stranger, that we only say right things to rather than real things. God values authenticity. And what's going to happen at the retreat is that we will not pray for a day and a half, but we're going to learn about things that will help us to be able to relate to God more like that friend that you just brought to mind. Somebody that we can be open and honest with. Why would we do that? Because the first spiritual goal is authenticity. Everything stands or falls there. It takes anything with it, down or up. And anyways, so let's get back to that person. Okay, get them back in mind. What is it about that person that enables you to feel open and unguarded? What is it? I would dare say that you trust them. You trust them. If you tell them something, they're not going to take it and proclaim it from the rooftops. They're not going to say, oh, you're such an idiot. They're not going to say anything that will make you feel lousy about what you shared. That's why authenticity and confidence go together. You're not going to be authentic before someone that you're afraid of. You can be authentic with somebody whom you're confident in. That's why confidence is the next thing. Confidence. What it says in your worship folder. For the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account. Verse 12 and 13 indicate why authenticity is critical. Because God does not judge behavior. He judges motives. And with people who are doing the right thing, but underneath the motives are not there, there's mistrust, there is hypocrisy. God looks at what's underneath. And what He says is, here, nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Nothing that you think, nothing that you imagine, nothing that you ponder is beyond God's scrutiny. Therefore, be open with Him. When you're talking to Him, don't pretend. Don't say, I didn't mean it. If you're talking to Him, you know what? Say, God, I really did mean that. And I'm not proud of that, but it's not that I just slipped. I really wanted to tear that person's head off. And I have a problem, but that's being authentic. And that is the foundation for healthy spirituality. Hypocrisy is the foundation for unhealthy spirituality. I didn't mean it. Yeah, you did. God's saying, I know you did. And that's why authenticity is critical. It goes on to say, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has gone through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who was unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. God knows everything, and that is a reason not to be a hypocrite. But it still doesn't give us reason to open up. That's what 14 through 16 does. It says, He's a high priest. He sympathizes with your weaknesses. God sympathizes. He is like that person that you can talk to. Therefore, that's why you can share your heart openly. Don't be a hypocrite because He already sees. Share openly because He sympathizes with your weaknesses. Confidence. If you want to get a picture of what confidence is, it is trust that evidences itself in disclosure. That's what confidence is. It's trust that emphasizes itself in speaking. So it starts in the heart and moves through the mouth. That's what confidence is. It's not just something in the heart. It's not just something with the mouth. It's when an attitude of the heart causes words to come out of the mouth. That's confidence in the Greek language with this word. It's what happens when somebody in the public forum gets up, there's a bunch of people in a marketplace, and because they know there's freedom of speech, they get up and say, let me tell you what I've been thinking of lately. And that person feels like they can share something. But not only do they feel it, they actually do it. That's the image for confidence. It's an attitude leading to an action. So here's what confidence means. Not just that you trust God to not blow you up, but that trust evidences itself in your talking to Him and telling Him real things, not just right things. That's confidence. And look what it says about confidence in that second verse. Don't throw away your confidence. It's that same word, that same image. Heart to mouth. It will be richly rewarded. What will be richly rewarded? What will? Confidence. God values confidence, which is... So if you're holding on to something saying, I'm not going to talk to God about this anymore, okay, fine, but don't think that God's going to like that. Because God likes confidence. He likes it when trust manifests itself in words. Or when you rail at God and say, don't think that He's impressed with that either, because the heart part is gone with that. It's kind of like yelling at God. And God doesn't want us to yell at Him. He wants us to be open because we trust Him. And that's what confidence is. It's both of those things. If we're to pursue authenticity and confidence, say if you decided, okay, Mike, you sold me. Authenticity, I get it. The Pharisees didn't do it, and they had real issues with God, and confidence is being open and expressing because we trust. Okay, I'm going to pursue authenticity and confidence. I'm going to tell you two things to do. Number one, ponder 10 commitments. If you ponder the commitments, they will increase your ability to trust God. You will start to think of Him more in line with someone I can trust. You see me, you sympathize, you deal gently, you love me, you change, choose. Good is ahead, good is guaranteed. You give me the power to persevere, you give me the power to be content. Those thoughts start to bring about the heart level trust as you remain in them, continue to think about them. Then, the second part of that, practice 3 habits, which is think about the things that bother you and quiet your heart. Which is, quiet your heart is about hold on to the things that are difficult, but it says be still. Shh. Be still. Because you have to breathe before you talk. Have you ever tried to talk when you're so agitated that it comes, and then what they say, breathe. That's what quieting your heart does. Breathe. A lot of things are going on that you don't like. You're doing things that you don't want to do. You have things you don't want to have. Don't run into God's presence and rail at Him. Breathe. And think, God, you tell me, be still, and know that you're God. You will never leave me or forsake me. You'll be exalted in the heaven. You'll be exalted in the earth. I am not alone. And when you breathe, then you can talk. God, I'm confused. I really do want to be a person that doesn't have an anger problem, but it seems like that's what I deal with. Can you help me? Now, that's confidence. It's not trying to make yourself this. It's being open with God, open and unguarded with Him. And that is what God will reward. And that will be the foundation from which transformation comes. Authenticity requires that we say one thing, and confidence requires that we say another. Authenticity requires that we say, this is painful, or this is uncomfortable. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to say 2 things. This is uncomfortable or painful, but this is not harmful. This is uncomfortable, but this is not harmful. See, when something doesn't feel good, it doesn't help us to say, oh, that's okay. It's not a problem. No big deal. That's not the truth. And God knows it. And so why don't we just be honest with Him? God, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. My family's in chaos. We're arguing all the time. And I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. Or whatever. Your job, where it is. You don't like your job right now. And you know you're supposed to have faith. And you think that you're supposed to kind of grin and bear it. God knows what you think. And so that's where it starts. God, this is painful. I don't like to be overlooked. I don't like to be out of a job. I don't like not knowing where the paycheck is going to come next month. This is uncomfortable. It's painful. What are we doing? We're being authentic. We're being authentic. But the next statement is, don't just say that. Say it, but then join it with, but this is not dangerous and this is not harmful. Now, things could happen, but if you won't let go of my hand, then I'm really not going to crash on the rocks of a terrible thing. Because if I'm connected with you, I'm connected with good. So even though I'm holding this difficult thing here, doesn't mean I'm holding on, doesn't mean you're going to let me go. So it's like that's being confident. I can trust you. You cause all things to work together for good. Now that doesn't mean that you say whippy dippy, work's going down the tank. It means you be authentic about that. But that's not the end of the line. Why? Because God's got you by the hand. He will never leave you or forsake you. So what it means then, authenticity is, this is painful. Confidence is, this is not harmful because you will bring me to a good place. Now, when you can hold on to those 2 statements, you can make it through today. And you know what you're going to have to do tomorrow? Pick up the authenticity statement, pick up the confidence statement, and walk with those statements through the day tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. Authenticity and confidence is critical. And they allow, so in terms of what it thinks, so then quiet your heart. Hold on to the things, but quiet your heart. God will not leave you or forsake you. Share your heart with Him authentically and confidently. And that leads to transformation. What it says, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed, there's our word, by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. What I want you to see, transformation comes from a renewing of the mind. Changing how you think. That's why I do not believe that let me say it positively. Transformation will occur as you ponder commitments and practice habits. Why? Because those are the ways you start to change the way you think about life. They change your mind. Pondering 10 commitments changes the way you think about God. Practicing 3 habits changes the way you think about what you don't have right now, what you're not doing right now. It's changing your thoughts. And it describes transformation as being a renewing of the mind. And I don't think it's just that we sit back in a chair. Anytime, you can change my mind. Not happening. I don't think that's the point. This is active. It's not something you sit back and let happen. You say, Mike, what could I do? Well, I'm going to be a broken record. Ponder 10 commitments. Look at what God says to you, especially His commitments to you. They will increase your confidence. They will. And enable you to be more open. And those are first great things in terms of spiritual progress. They lead to transformation. What it says there, it goes on to say, and do the gift which you've been given to do. All of you have spiritual gifts, capacities that God gives you, so we don't all function the same way. If I have a teaching gift or something like that, your gift might be hospitality, your gift might be service, your gift might be counseling, encouragement, exhortation, prayer, faith. All of us have different capacities. But what I guess it's saying then, authenticity plus confidence increases our transformation and brings us to the place where our mindset changes, and we will evidence that in becoming active and doing the thing that God would have us to do. It says in verse 2, don't conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve God's will, what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Strength. I think strength is a matter of a couple things. It's about giving your heart. That's what it evidences itself in. When you quiet your heart and share your heart, then you start giving your heart to others. You start to come alongside others. And that's what I think strength is. Strength is characterized by endurance. Look what it says. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Him who gives me strength. Paul talked about the secret of being content. You know what strength is? The ability not to have what you want, but still be able to do what's right. How would you like an increased capacity to do what's right when you don't have what you want? I think all of us would. That's what we get in places where we get angry and we know the right thing to do, but I'm not going to do it. There. We become angry. Some of us put our anger outside. Some of us put it inside. Strength is a contentment. The ability to not have exactly what you want, but still be able to be okay. That's what strength is. It manifests itself in endurance. So you can stay under a difficult circumstance without going crazy, without feeling like you need to crawl out of your skin. That's what strength is. It's characterized by endurance. You think of a place that endurance will be helpful right now. And we talked about the work situation. You can't change that. In fact, isn't that what endurance is about? Things that you could change. if you could, but you can't? Question. You say, Mike, I don't know where I need to endure. Oh, that's easy. What would you change in your life if you could? Socially. Financially. Intellectually. Maybe even spiritually. Relationally. What would you change in your life if you could, but you can't? Maybe even in terms of things you deal with. You don't want to deal with anger, but you do. You don't want to deal with depression, but you do. You would change it if you could, but you can't. You know what you have to endure then? Well, you know what you have to do. I just gave you the word. Endure. That's what endurance is. It's when you have to tolerate something that you'd get rid of if you couldn't, but you can't get rid of it. You have to hang in there. Strength gives you the ability to endure. That's what Paul said. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. I have a surprise. And again, this is a really difficult thing for us, I think. God can, in that thing that you want to get out of, God can mainline contentment. So that even though your circumstance doesn't change, your level of contentment rises without the circumstance changing at all. That's possible. You're saying, no, okay, let me try something with you. I've done this before. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Let's try it. Think of that situation that you would change if you could, but you can't. You can't make it go away. Think about it. You got it in mind? That doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel, you're angry at yourself, angry at others. Try to hang on to that, and I'm going to tell you something. I've done this before. Let's try it again. Here's what God says to you. Again, hold on to that. Try to hang on to it. Pull against me. Here's what God would say to you. Shh. Be still. And know that I am God. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. Be still. And know that I am God. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. Shh. Be still and know that I am God. Never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. If you're like me, that pulls against, it makes something sit down. Maybe you felt just a titch of it. The more familiarity there is with the commitments and with God's care and love, then that it's not just self-hypnosis. The reason why we want what we want, it makes us feel like we matter. And what God's saying, I can download that. And it won't change, it won't make you mood altered, but it will make you feel that you're not alone. Quiet your heart. Share your heart. Service as well says, Paul says in my first offense, it's in the worship folder, no one came to my support, but everyone deserted me. Loneliness is a lousy thing to have to deal with. But look what he said. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength, so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed and all the Gentiles might hear it. I don't think anybody likes to be abandoned. But Paul learned the secret of being content, and this is what ended up happening. God brought him into places where friends deserted him. He knew he wanted to do what God wanted him to do. And there was a time in a jail cell. It was right outside of the temple in Jerusalem, where for all his life he was taught that's where people go to find God. And he wasn't in the temple. He was right next to it in a Roman jail, on a bed in stone throws distance away from the temple. And he got something in that jail cell that no one ever got in the temple. Jesus showed up right by the bedside. And he said, you're going to make a trip to Rome, but I'm going to be with you. I'll tell you what. He got more in that little interchange. God showed up by his bedside. And then Paul had the strength in that to go to Rome. Why? Because he was a tough guy? No, he knew that God was with him. Why? I think he had learned some lessons along the road. Learned about authenticity. Confidence. Led to transformation. Strength. The ability to endure. Strength. The ability to serve. Worship team, I'm going to ask them to come up now. And my final word. Ponder 10 Commitments. If you have the book, read through it again. There is the opportunity in the website. If you want to even get the emails again, click onto the website, sfhopechurch.com. There is a Hope Mail button. You click the button, and then it will allow you to sign up for emails. You can sign up for one of two. You check the 40 days email box, and you will get one per day, the 40-day emails that came last year, but they'll be in a different form, kind of sharp looking. There's another weekly emails from Mike. How many of you got that this week? Okay, you can click that, and that will come out once per week. Why would you do that? Because it's going to be about 10 commitments. Ponder 10 commitments. Practice 3 habits. The retreat will help you do that. You'll come away with skills that will enable you to share and quiet your heart with the type of personality that you have. And then pursue 4 goals. Authenticity, confidence, transformation, and strength.
Would you please stand up and join us?
Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for your direction to us, and you would move us towards spirituality, maybe in a direction that we wouldn't at first see as being the direction we should go, authenticity, but that's what you seem to indicate. Confidence, transformation, strength. We do want to be strong. We do want to endure and serve. And I pray that you would put the foundation in place as we cooperate so that we would be mindful of those things that lead to transformation, both the reality of where we are and the reality of your holding us by the hand and never leaving or forsaking us. Thank you that you tell us Semper Fi. You'll never leave us behind. Continue to help us to be more authentic followers of yours. In Jesus' name, amen.